Welcome to A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students, Lesson 304. Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ. I can obscure my holy sight if I intrude my world upon it. Nor can I behold the holy sights Christ looks upon unless it is his vision that I use. Perception is a mirror, not a fact. And what I look on is my state of mind reflected outward. I would bless the world by looking on it through the eyes of Christ. And I will look upon the certain signs that all my sins have been forgiven me. You lead me from the darkness to the light, from sin to holiness. Let me forgive and thus receive salvation for the world. It is your gift, my Father, given me to offer to your Holy Son, that he may find again the memory of you and of your Son as you created him. This is a really beautiful lesson. Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ. So here in this first sentence, I can obscure my holy sight if I intrude my world upon it. A workbook for students is acknowledging that we certainly have the ability to obscure our vision. That is a choice that we are able to make. And the ego is not able to look upon the holy sights of Christ. So we're essentially choosing whether we want to be hostage to ego or host to God. I find one of the most powerful sentences in the entire workbook for students is perception is a mirror, not a fact. And yet, everybody's ego would convince each of us that perception is a fact, unchangeable. I'm right, you're wrong, this is how it is. All of you just can't see it correctly. I see it correctly. That's how ego functions. Ego can't embrace that other people's perceptions is their personal reality. No, the ego is right, everyone else is wrong. And it says in a workbook for students that you can choose to be right or happy, but not both. Because the ego is so limited in its thinking and its scope. It's like a tiny little ant saying, I understand the entire world. Well, no, it doesn't. It barely even understands itself, let alone everything else. Lead me from the darkness to the light. Are we going to choose fear and misery? Or are we going to choose happiness and faith? And I'm not talking about a blind faith. I'm talking about something that you consciously, deliberately choose. To look through the eyes of Christ, through an elevated lens of consciousness that is at least as real as the tiny, petty, limited paradigm of ego. Which in fact is nothing but a nightmare. We're taught that even though the ego's teachings are false, if we believe them and act upon them, we will create a nightmare. But perception is a mirror, not a fact. And what I look on is my state of mind reflected outward. We get to choose as sovereign individuals, as sovereign beings, whether to be hostage to ego or host to God. I don't choose that for anyone else. I do get to choose that for myself. And we're taught that as we choose that for ourselves, we are bringing salvation to the world. As way showers, as beacons of hope, as a light in the dark. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow for lesson 305.